picture like the most famous person you can possibly think of. Just get them in your head.
Right. Okay, I'm picturing them.
You probably imagine them surrounded by this invisible, basically impenetrable force field. We're talking crisis managers, public relations teams, crafted statements that go through, half a dozen legal reviews before they ever even reach your feed.
Oh, absolutely. The layers of protection are insane.
Exactly. And we've just sort of accepted that modern fame is completely engineered. But what happens when you catch a megastar, like, voluntarily dropping that shield?
It's totally disorienting. I mean, we're so conditioned to consume this polished, focus group tested content that when someone of that magnitude actually goes off script, it almost feels like a glitch in the matrix.
A glitch is the perfect way to describe it. And that's exactly our mission for today's deep dive. We're jumping into this amazing video breakdown, originally compiled by Icon Arc. It's this compilation pulling together some of the most raw, unscripted moments of Taylor Swift caught on camera.
Yeah, that Icon Arc video is it's really eye-opening. The visuals of her just reacting in real time are incredible.
Right. But we aren't just here to recount pop culture trivia for you guys. We're going to unpack what these specific unfiltered interactions reveal about the psychology of boundary setting. Like, how does someone at that insane level actually control their own narrative? Okay, let's unpack this. Because whether you consider yourself a massive fan or you're simply, fascinated by the mechanics of extreme fame, this deep dive is going to completely reframe how you look at public authenticity.
I'm really glad you framed it around boundary setting because, honestly, that's the absolute through line here. When we strip away all the music and the massive stadium tours, what we're fundamentally analyzing is a masterclass in how a person navigates conflict.
Yeah, conflict resolution on a global scale.
Exactly. And as we'll see, she applies the exact same conflict resolution strategy to, like, an obnoxious radio DJ as she does to the most powerful political figures in the world. It's wild.
It really is. So to understand how she built that strategy, we have to rewind back to where she really first dominated the cultural conversation, which, was her highly publicized dating life.
Oh, man, the late 2000s tabloids, they were just vicious.
Vicious. If you remember that era, the standard playbook for a young female pop star back then was just to, smile, act coy, and maintain this weird sense of mystery when asked about rumors. You were supposed to be the subject of the gossip, right? Never the actual author of it.
It was a very passive role by design. I mean, the entire media ecosystem relied on that passivity to generate revenue.
Yeah.
They needed the star to remain quiet, so the tabloids could just fill in the blanks with whatever sensational narrative sold the most magazines that week.
Right, but she completely short-circuits that system. Think back to her first time hosting Saturday Night Live.
Oh, the monologue.
Yes. The tradition is for the host to come out, do a nervous little stand-up routine, maybe interact with a cast member in a sketch. But she walks out with just an acoustic guitar and plays a completely original song.
And at first, she plays right into the stereotype.
Totally. She starts with these breathy lyrics about liking glitter and sparkly dresses, just giving the audience exactly what they expect from this, teenage country pop singer.
It's brilliant misdirection. I mean, she's actively lowering the audience's defenses by leaning into the exact caricature the media has built for her.
And then, bam, once their defenses are down, she completely pivots. The lyrics shift to, I like writing songs about douchebags who cheat on me, but I'm not going to say that.
Yeah, the crowd goes crazy.
From there, it turns into this surgical takedown of her exes. She playfully clears up the Taylor Lautner rumors, the whole Twilight werewolf thing, and then she aims directly at Joe Jonas. She sings, "You might think I'd bring up Joe, that guy who broke up with me on the phone in 25 seconds when I was 18, but I'm not going to mention him."
What's fascinating here is the psychological weight of that specific metric. She doesn't just say, he broke her heart or he treated her badly. She says on the phone in 25 seconds.
Right. The 25 seconds thing is so specific.
Exactly. By attaching hard data to emotional pain, she effectively strips the subjective power away from him. It's no longer this messy, he said, she said breakup. It's an empirical fact that she now owns and is literally using as a comedic weapon on live television.
Man, I didn't even think about the data aspect of it. The 25 seconds becomes undeniable. You can't argue with the timestamp.
You really can't.
And she knew exactly how powerful that metric was because she deployed it again in an even more high-pressure situation.
Yeah.
If you guys have ever watched daytime talk shows from that era, you know they loved trapping guests.
Oh, the talk show traps were infamous.
Yeah, and Ellen DeGeneres had her on the couch and was relentlessly pressing her about her love life, like eventually suggesting she should date Nick Jonas just to spite Joe. It's this incredibly awkward, invasive trap designed to make a young woman look, I don't know, flustered or petty.
And that's a really tough situation for anyone, let alone an 18-year-old on national television.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you laugh along, you endorse a petty narrative. But if you get defensive, you're labeled difficult or humorless. The entire structure of the interview is designed to make the host look clever at the guest's expense.
Yeah, but she completely neutralizes the trap. Like, she looks Ellen dead in the eye, totally calm, and says she wants someone who's actually right for her, and then she delivers the kicker.
So good.
She says that when she finds that person, she won't even remember the boy who broke up with me over the phone in 25 seconds when I was 18. Ellen is left literally speechless. The audience goes wild, and Taylor just sits there smiling. It's like playing emotional judo. She takes the heavy, invasive weight of the media's obsession and uses that exact momentum to flip the narrative back in her favor.
Emotional judo is a great way to put it.
Right. But I have to ask you, looking at this as an expert, is this really PR genius? Or is she just a frustrated kid venting in the only way she knows how?
I think it's both, honestly. But the strategy is highly sophisticated. She realized very early that her personal life was going to be consumed as a commodity. The tabloids were going to monetize her breakups, whether she issued a polite no comment or not. So rather than retreating, she seized the means of production.
Wow, seized the means of production. I like that.
By putting the most intimate gossipy details directly into her own songs and her own interviews, she bankrupted the tabloids. Like, why buy a magazine for a rumor when the artist is giving you the exact runtime of the breakup phone call for free? She took the economic power away from the media.
That makes a lot of sense. She refuses to let someone else profit off her narrative. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. This intense boundary setting isn't just reserved for, high-stakes media narratives or famous exes. She applies the exact same intensity to incredibly low-stakes everyday interactions. If you challenge her reality, even on something trivial, she just digs her heels in.
Because for someone in her position, there are no trivial interactions. The principle of the boundary matters way more than the subject of the argument.
Which perfectly explains the Bobby Bones cookie incident.
Oh my God, the cookie incident.
So for you listening, Bobby Bones is a massive country radio personality. During an interview, they're talking about a time she baked cookies for his crew, and he casually throws out that the cookie gave him food poisoning. Now, a highly trained PR bot celebrity would just laugh awkwardly, apologize, and change the subject to their new album.
Right. The instinct is always to smooth over the social friction. You absorb the joke to keep the interview moving.
But she does the exact opposite. She mounts a vigorous, highly personal defense of her baking. She immediately fires back, "You're lying. I swear to God that's such a lie." Bobby tries to walk it back a little, suggesting maybe it wasn't the cookie, but she will not let him off the hook.
She goes right after him.
She says, "Are you allergic to awesomeness? Is that why I'm itching right now?" She is visibly annoyed in the video. She ends up shutting the whole bit down with, "All right, we're done."
From a purely psychological standpoint, we really have to look at what's actually being threatened there. Early in her career, her entire brand architecture was built on extreme relatability.
Baking cookies, crafting, the cats.
Exactly. Hanging out with cats, these were the pillars of her public identity. So when a prominent radio host jokingly attacks her baking, he's inadvertently attacking the authenticity of that persona. If she lets that false narrative stand, even as a joke, she's signaling that her relatable image is just a fabricated prop. She defends the cookie because she's fundamentally defending her own authenticity.
It's the slippery slope of letting people tell lies about you, even small ones. And you see how genuine that unscripted energy is when she interacts with Elvis Duran. This is another massive radio host, and it's his 50th birthday.
Yeah, this clip is so awkward.
It is. The PR playbook here is simple: wish the man a happy birthday, tell him he's an absolute legend, move on. But she gets completely sidetracked by the concept of him turning 50. She turns it into this bizarre philosophical age investigation. She tells him, "I think when you're funny, you seem less like 50.
And the whole studio just freezes.
Yes. Left hanging in this awkward silence, trying to figure out if she just complimented him or completely roasted him.
That's the inherent risk of abandoning the PR filter. When you engage in genuine, unscripted small talk, it gets messy, it gets awkward. But as a listener, that awkwardness is the exact currency of trust. We trust her more because she sounds like a normal person blurting out an intrusive thought rather than a robot delivering a canned line written by a publicist.
Yeah, the awkwardness makes it real. And that refusal to just play along with social scripts is incredibly potent when power dynamics are at play. Just look at her interaction with Justin Timberlake.
Oh, this is a classic example.
They're backstage in Nashville, and Timberlake, who is obviously a veteran in the industry, decides to playfully test her. He asks, "What do you do for a living in Nashville? You're probably a songwriter too." He's doing that like older brother, slightly condescending routine.
He's attempting to establish a hierarchy. It's a very common tactic in male-dominated industries to gently patronize a younger female colleague under the guise of banter. It forces the subordinate to either play along and accept the lower status or cause a scene.
But she finds the third option. She doesn't miss a single beat. With a completely deadpan expression, she fires back, "Yeah, and I have 6 Grammys too."
Boom.
Timberlake is just left standing there, completely disarmed. It's incredibly fast, and she doesn't hesitate for a second.
This is where authenticity functions as armor. She doesn't need to pause and calculate how Justin Timberlake might perceive her response because she is grounded entirely in her own reality. She knows her resume. She knows her worth. When you don't suffer from imposter syndrome, you don't defer to artificial hierarchies.
That is so true. And that awareness of how power and hierarchy operate in the industry bleeds perfectly into how she approaches gender expectations. Like when you watch the behind-the-scenes footage for her music video for The Man, she is literally in the director's chair, covered in heavy prosthetics to transform into a toxic Wall Street-style male executive.
Yeah, the visual of her in that makeup is striking. And to make it believable, she has to deconstruct how men physically occupy space.
Which requires an incredibly blunt examination of the male gaze and male entitlement.
Right, it's a study in physical posturing.
Yeah, she's sitting there with the male crew members, asking them these hyper-direct questions. She asks, when guys check people out, what's the actual mechanical process? Where do their eyes go? And the crew just flatly tells her boobs and then their butt. She just nods, absorbing the data without judgment.
Taking notes.
Literally taking notes. But the moment that really breaks the tension is when she's in the full male costume, and she realizes she doesn't know how to adjust her own prosthetic crotch. She looks at the crew, starts laughing, and admits, "I've never adjusted my underpants like that."
If we connect this to the bigger picture, she is utilizing a really sophisticated form of cultural critique here. By openly exposing her own ignorance about male physical posturing, she highlights how performative masculinity actually is.
Performative, exactly.
It's a learned behavior. And by doing it with self-deprecating humor, she makes a fairly sharp critique of male privilege, incredibly digestible for a mainstream audience.
Because she refuses to romanticize the pop star experience, she constantly breaks the fourth wall. We saw this on the Grammys red carpet, too. An interviewer asked if she's going to walk home with a man that night, which, by the way, is this gross implication that winning the biggest award in music is really just a stepping stone to finding a boyfriend.
It's so reductive.
Completely. And she completely rejects the premise. She says, "I'm not going to walk home with any men tonight. I go home to the cats." And she casually adds that men equal trouble with a capital T.
It's a subtle but really firm rejection of the narrative that a woman's professional triumph is somehow incomplete without romantic validation. She's drawing a hard boundary around her own success.
And the cats aren't just a punchline either. They're a recurring shield. In her 73 Questions interview with Vogue, the interviewer asks why she's the most followed person on Instagram. A typical celebrity would talk about their connection with their fans or, their authentic art. She completely removes her ego and says, "Because my cats are adorable."
Rhythm pets first.
Always. But that entire interview is packed with these moments of breaking the fourth wall. Like when they ask her favorite beverage, she says coffee while casually using a massive MTV VMA Moonman award as a paperweight on the table.
I love that visual. Just casually moving a major industry award to put down a coffee mug.
Right. And when asked about a childhood holdover, she doesn't say a blanket or a toy. She says, "My insecurities."
That level of vulnerability is tactical. In a highly choreographed, rapid-fire interview setting like Vogue's 73 Questions, admitting to lingering insecurities instantly humanizes her to the viewer. It's jarring in its honesty.
It is jarring, but the most jarring moments are when she talks about the business itself. When asked what song she wishes she had written, she doesn't pick a Bob Dylan masterpiece or a Beatles classic. She picks the theme song to the TV show Friends.
Which is such a funny answer.
But the reason is the best part. She says because of those royalties. And then when asked for advice for aspiring singers, she doesn't give the standard follow your dreams speech. She looks right into the lens and says, get a good lawyer.
I love that moment because it completely annihilates the myth of the tortured artist. The music industry relies on young talent believing that art is pure and business is secondary. That's how artists get exploited.
Yeah, that's exactly how they lose their master recordings.
Precisely. By explicitly prioritizing syndication royalties and legal representation, she is warning the next generation about the predatory nature of intellectual property laws. She's literally using a glossy fashion magazine interview as a Trojan horse for labor rights in the music industry.
She is basically handing out the cheat codes to the industry. And she knows that speaking this bluntly, especially as a woman in music, makes people uncomfortable. In a later interview for the Lover era, she's told that the word lover is polarizing. She doesn't even bother to defend the word. She just shrugs and says, well, anything I do is polarizing.
It's the ultimate state of radical acceptance. When you finally internalize that you cannot control how other people misinterpret you, you are liberated to just exist exactly as you are.
And that liberation brings us to the final and definitely the most intense phase of our deep dive today. Because when someone spends over a decade securing their personal boundaries, fighting for their intellectual property, and refusing to be patronized, that unapologetic energy is inevitably going to collide with the political stage.
It's unavoidable at that level of fame.
Exactly. Now, for you listening, I want to be abundantly clear right now. Our goal here is not to litigate politics. We are not endorsing any politicians, and we are not taking a stance on any policies.
Right.
We are strictly analyzing the mechanics of how Taylor Swift utilizes her platform when the stakes are escalated to the highest possible level.
Exactly. We're looking at the architecture of the communication, independent of the ideology itself.
So let's look at the MTV Video Music Awards. She wins Video of the Year, and instead of the traditional tearful thank you speech to her label, she uses the airtime to promote her petition for the Equality Act. She explicitly points out to millions of viewers that the petition has 500,000 signatures.
Which is a massive number.
Huge. She notes that this is 5 times the amount legally required to warrant an official response from the White House. And then she literally taps her wrist, checking an invisible watch.
That visual from the iconic breakdown is so striking.
It is. On live global television, she is telling the executive branch of the federal government that they are late.
Think about the trajectory we've just charted. We started with her aggressively demanding accountability from a radio DJ over a batch of cookies.
The Bobby Bones cookie.
Right. And now she's demanding accountability from the White House over civil rights legislation. The scale has multiplied exponentially, but the unfiltered, uncompromising demand for respect is mechanically identical.
It's wild. And the stakes got even higher when she moved into direct political endorsements. She publicly endorsed Kamala Harris, urged her fans to vote for Democrats, and specifically called out Republican Senator Martha Blackburn in her home state. When a pop star of her magnitude enters the partisan arena, the blowback is immense.
Oh, the cultural friction is immediate.
And in this case, the blowback came directly from Donald Trump.
Right. The sitting president at the time responded directly to her statements.
He told reporters that he likes Taylor's music about 25% less now. So you have the president of the United States openly critiquing a pop star on the global stage, while other political commentators are simultaneously attacking her intelligence. For 99% of celebrities, this is an absolute crisis. You call the lawyers, you draft a highly sanitized, unified statement about, respecting democracy, and you just lay low.
But she doesn't draft a statement at all.
No. She's caught on camera being told about the 25% comment. She doesn't flinch. She just laughs, this genuine dismissive laugh, and says, you know what? I don't care if they write that. And she just keeps moving. I struggle with how to interpret this, though. Is checking her watch at the White House and laughing off presidential critiques the ultimate arrogant flex of celebrity power? Or is it just apathy? Like, has she just run out of the capacity to care?
This raises an important question about the intersection of pop culture and political power. If we analyze her reaction objectively, what stands out isn't arrogance or apathy, it's consistency.
Consistency.
Yeah. Her reaction to the president critiquing her was the exact same unfazed, dismissive energy she gave to Justin Timberlake, trying to patronize her backstage. It's the exact same posture she held when Ellen tried to corner her on that couch. She does not elevate her internal panic just because the opponent holds a higher office. Her strategy is absolute, unwavering consistency in her boundaries. She refuses to adopt a defensive posture, regardless of who is attacking.
Wow, when you frame it like that, it connects all the dots. She didn't just stumble into handling a presidential critique. She's been training for these massive moments for a decade by refusing to compromise on the small ones.
Precisely. A boundary is a boundary. It doesn't matter if the threat is a joke about a pastry or a critique from a head of state.
That is an incredibly powerful way to look at it. So let's recap what we've unpacked for you today. We started by analyzing a teenager who realized that attaching the metric of 25 seconds to a breakup gave her the power to roast her ex on live television.
And take back the narrative from the tabloids.
Exactly. We watched her fiercely defend a cookie to protect the integrity of her relatable brand. We saw her demystify the romanticized music industry by prioritizing lawyers and royalties over ego. And we watched her casually demand White House responses while laughing off presidential critiques. What all of these unscripted moments reveal isn't a pop star acting out. They reveal a highly calculated, deeply self-aware individual who simply refuses to be anything other than the narrator of her own life.
She learned early on that if you don't aggressively author your own story, the public and the media will gladly write a fictional one for you. And she decided the latter was unacceptable.
Completely unacceptable, which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on long after you finish this deep dive. We started this conversation talking about that impenetrable force field of PR that surrounds modern megastars.
A glitch in the matrix.
Right. In an era where every celebrity has a massive team monitoring their every move, if Taylor Swift's most powerful, resonant, and culturally dominant moments are the ones where she is completely unfiltered, how much of our perception of any celebrity's authenticity is actually just a masterclass in knowing exactly who you are and stubbornly refusing to back down?
It certainly makes you wonder how many incredible, authentic moments from other public figures are being suffocated by teams who are too afraid to let the shield drop.
It really does. Thank you so much for exploring this deep dive with us today. Keep questioning the narratives you're handed, and we'll catch you on the next one.